What is up, my people? Hopefully you guys are doing awesome. Chandler Molyneux here. Welcome into the Act First show. This is the show where we help online coaches get better at sales. And today we got a great sales video. More specifically, y'all, we're going to be talking about the 7 beliefs that prospects need in order to buy from you. So if you feel like you're having a hard time closing deals, you're just having a hard time connecting with prospects on sales calls, you're having a hard time understanding what actually gets your prospects to buy, right? Not the specific words to say, not the specific objection handling, not the specific script. That's not what we're talking about today, because honestly, those aren't the things that get people to buy. What gets people to move, what gets people to buy is their emotions. All right, and we have to understand, what are the 7 beliefs? What are the 7 emotions, the 7 feelings that actually drive somebody to say, you know what, I want to purchase this person's program. All right. And we're going to talk about not only what those are, but we're also going to talk about more philosophically today, not really like tactically, strategically, but more of an understanding of what you need to do to actually elicit those emotions. So let's waste no time. You guys know me. I don't like to waste time. I like to just get right into it. All right. So this is going to be it. All right. I'm going to give you guys the 7 beliefs off the bat. So if you're taking notes, now would be a time to write this down. And then we're going to dive deeper into each one. All right. So here are the 7 beliefs. Number 1 is pain. All right. So the prospects needs to feel a level of pain in order to say, I need to make a change. All right. Number 2 is doubt. There needs to be a level of doubt there. And like I said, I'll define all of these in a second. Number 3 is cost. Number 4 is desire. Number 5 is money. Number 6 is support. And number 7 is trust. All right, so these are the 7 beliefs: pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, and trust. You got that written down? If you're saying, no, Jad, I don't have it written down because I don't take notes when I listen, then guess what? That's probably why you're sucking at sales. All right, so get out that damn notebook. All right, write this stuff down: pain, doubt, cost, desire, money, support, trust. All right, assuming you have that written down, let's go ahead and dive into each of them. All right. So I'm going to go over the most important one first. The most important one is pain. All right. This is the most important one. All right. So a prospect must believe they have a problem keeping them from what they want. All right. So a prospect has to believe, hey, I have a problem, a barrier, a barricade, a wall in front of me that is keeping me from what I want. I always like to use fitness. I've been in the fitness space for a very long time. Obviously, I'll try to use some other examples here as well. But, I want to lose 100 pounds. That's where I want to be. I have a barrier between me and losing 100 pounds. I have no fucking clue how to do it, right? Or I don't have the discipline to do it. That could be another barrier, right? Another example is I want to start a business. I literally don't know how to start a business, right? So I know where I want to be, but I don't know how to get there. All right. So there has to be that. Okay. The second thing is no problem equals no sale. So if there is no problem, the person's not going to buy. There has to be a problem that we solve. That's what sales are. You're a problem solver. We have to be solving a problem. If there's no problem, there's no sale. All right. Now, it is your responsibility to find the problem and to exacerbate the problem. All right. Let's break down. What does that exactly mean? So you as the problem solver, you as the leader need to actually identify what the problem is. And we tend to operate under this assumption that the prospect knows exactly everything and the prospect's going to give you all the information. That's not always true. Some prospects know exactly what their problem are. They know exactly that you are the solution and it's an easy rollover sale. All right. But that's not everybody. A lot of people, they're aware of a problem, but they're not clearly sure what the problem is. And they need you to be the detective to tell them what is going on. All right. So a lot of times we need to practice and be really good at listening to identify what specifically is the problem, right? Or probably the most common one is the prospect thinks one thing is the problem, but really that's not actually the problem, right? I'll try to use a weight loss example, right? They might think that carbohydrates are the problem, but really the actual problem is they're not disciplined, right? Like that's usually what is going on, is they think they have one problem and they don't. So the first part here of what you have to do is you have to properly identify what the problem is. Now, once you've identified what the problem is and you communicate that to them, you then have to create the gap, right? And the gap, what I refer to the gap is they are here, right? This is where they're at currently, all the pain and suffering that they're experiencing, and this is where they want to be. The further the gap is, so the wider the gap is, the higher the pain threshold, the higher the pain is. The shorter the gap is, the lower the pain is, right? So using weight loss as an example, if somebody only needs to lose 5 pounds, the gap between where they are and where they want to be is so little, and there's not really that much pain or tension to solve that problem. But if the person needs to lose 100 pounds, right, the gap between where they are and where they want to be is so wide that there's a high level of tension to get that problem solved, right? So it's up to you, right, on the sales call to create that gap between where they are and where they want to be. All right. And I talk about that. This is not the video to talk about it. I talk about that a lot in my discovery video. So anytime I post a video where I'm talking about the discovery section, that's a big thing that I talk about. So I highly recommend figure it out, go through my channel, see the ones that have discovery in the title and watch those. All right, so that's the first belief is pain. All right, the second belief is doubt. All right, and I'm just going to read my notes here for you guys. All right, so the prospect must believe they can't fix this on their own, or they are doubtful that they can. All right, so the second thing that's needed in order for somebody to buy from you is they need to have a level of doubt that they can't fix this on their own, that they do need help. All right, now the buying pocket, in other words, the place that the prospect needs in order to make the purchase, equals when the prospect believes that you are the best path to take, right? So we have this pain, we have this gap. There are many different solutions in the gap in order to get them from point A to point B, right? But they need to believe that you are the fastest and best solution, that you are the straight line between where they want to, or where they are to where they want to be, right? That your solution is not this ziggly, crazy path, but it's actually a straight line between where they are and where they want to be. Okay, they need to believe that you are that individual. And we'll talk about that in a second. All right. Now, the third thing is sometimes the doubt is already there. Sometimes you have to create the doubt, and sometimes you need to alleviate the doubt. All right, so this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to talk about in this section. All right, so the first thing we need to understand is there needs to be a level of doubt there, meaning the person needs to have a doubt that they can accomplish this goal on their own in order to buy from you. Now, like I said, there are some times that the doubt is already there, and we don't actually have to create any doubt. But then there are some times that there is no doubt. The person actually is a little bit egotistical, and we actually need to create the doubt, right? And then lastly, there are times that doubt is so prevalent that it actually handicaps them, and we need to alleviate some doubt. All right, so let's kind of talk through some basics there. So if somebody has no doubt, they're very confident that they can accomplish this goal, right? The place that I like to go is, how long have you been trying this? Right? And if they've been trying this for a while, using that as leverage to show them, like, do you really know what you're doing? Right? Or if they haven't tried anything, how long have you been thinking about trying this, and why haven't you gotten started? Right? Those are kind of the ways that I like to create doubt in the fact that, well, you haven't accomplished it yet. Okay? Now, in terms of alleviating doubt, right, it's more so talking about, like, if they say they have imposter syndrome or they say they have fear, I always like to project out in the future and say, these are your two outcomes. If you continue to have fear, your life's going to look like this. If you don't, if you get over the fear, or you move forward in spite of the fear, this is what your life could look like. And I like to paint that picture. And I talk about that. This isn't the video to do that, but I talk about that a lot in my objection handling videos. Okay. But really the thing that you need to understand here is, in order for somebody to buy from you, there needs to be a level of doubt. Okay, so we got pain, we got doubt. All right, the third one here is cost. Okay, so the cost of doing nothing is worse than spending the money. That's what the prospect needs to believe. Okay, the prospect believes that the cost of doing nothing is worse than actually spending the money, right? And this is very, 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 very simple, okay? In your discovery section, Talk about this in my discovery videos, but you should ask this question. This should be a question you ask every single prospect. Hey, 12 months from now, if you don't accomplish this goal, what does your life look like? And then, have them answer, say, what else? Maximize that question, okay? Then say, cool, and on a positive note, 12 months from now, if you have accomplished this goal, what does your life look like, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to show them if they do nothing, their life is going to look the same or worse, right? So we're trying to show them or get them to speak about that cost. All right, the second bullet point I have written down here is current and future pain of doing nothing needs to be far greater than time, energy, money of the program. So more or less saying the same thing in a different way, okay? But you have to show them that the cost of doing nothing is worse than spending the money. The best way to do that, if you do nothing, project out into the future. What does your life look like? Have them talk about that. Okay, the next thing here is desire. The next belief. The prospect must believe solving the problem will yield a better future. All right, what we have to know what they want, why they want it, and we need to assign a specific number to it as well. Lastly, how getting this improves their life. So these are all questions that you guys should be asking in your discovery, right? A lot of this is actually just another discovery video because once you get into the presentation and the pitch, you're not going to be elicting these emotions, right? So let's break this down again. The desire, right? So the prospect must believe solving the problem will yield a better future. So it's the opposite of cost, right? Cost is if you do nothing, this is what your life's going to look like. Desire is if you do something, this is what your life's going to look like. So questions that you need to ask in your discovery, the 12 months if you do, 12 months if you don't, the question I just gave you is obviously a great one. But we need to figure out first what they want, right? So what is their outcome? And talk about that. Hey, great. I know you want to lose 30 pounds. Well, how does losing 30 pounds change your life? Right? What else? Get them to maximize that, right? So that's understanding what they want and why they want it. And when we figure out what they want, sorry, I have a hair in my nose that's really bothering me. When we figure out what they want, we need to assign a specific number to it. It can't just be weight loss. It can't just be a better marriage. It can't just be a bigger business. We need to have a specific number because when we have a specific number, I really apologize. I don't know what it's a hair or something going on. But when we have a specific number, we know what the gap is, right? So for example, if it's business and they're making $10,000 a month, but they want to make $100,000 a month, we know that that's a very wide gap to fill. Now, the last thing here is how, oh no. Mic down. The last thing for desire is how getting this improves their overall life. Hey, love that you want to lose 30 pounds. Losing 30 pounds, how does that improve your overall life, right? So literally just asking them the question straight up. All right, so the next belief here is money, okay? So the prospect needs to believe that they have the resources and the willingness to solve the problem. Okay. Willingness is probably the most important word. I like to just encapsulate resources and willingness as resourcefulness. Are you willing to find the resources? So now notice how I didn't say the prospect needs to have the exact dollar amount in order to buy the program. That's not actually true. All right, and I know that not to be true through my own personal circumstance. I invested in my first business mentor was $6,000. I had $19, I think it was $19 in my bank account. I found the money. I picked up side jobs. I sold things, and I got resourceful. Resourceful is a willingness to find the resources. So that's why that word is so important there. No willingness to pay equals not enough cost to take action, right? And that's the biggest thing here, right? People become willing to pay any amount of money, even if they don't have it. They're willing to take out a loan. They're willing to find a credit card. They're willing to ask their parents for money. They're willing to ask siblings for money if the cost is great enough. Meaning, if I don't do this, it's going to cost me more than what I'm paying to do this. For example, if I don't pay for this, relationship coaching, I'm going to get divorced, right? In divorce, what am I going to lose? I'm going to lose my husband. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose lots of money, right? So paying $10,000 for a relationship program that's promising to fix my marriage, that's nothing compared to losing all of that, right? So the cost, no willingness. So if somebody has no willingness to pay, it's really because they just don't, there's not enough cost. This hair is still bothering the shit out of me. There's not enough cost to take action. Okay. Now, another thing here that I wrote down with money is in the discovery section, never mention money unless they do. Never mention money until the end, right? Because when we start bringing up in the discovery section, what's your budget? What's this, right? It opens up a can of worms and it's more of a logical conversation and it's never going to end well, right? Because there are some people that just don't have the money, but they are resourceful and willing to find the money. So just don't bring up those conversations preemptive. It's never going to serve you well. Okay, cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about money. Yeah, okay, I'll say this one thing. One of my favorite, when people say they don't have money for this, and they say that in the objection handling, I know this isn't really an objection handling video. I always like to use that word resourceful. So what I'll say is like, hey, totally get if this is a lot of money. You know, remind me again, why do you want to lose these 30 pounds? What's the biggest reason you want to lose these 30 pounds? I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you again. They say it, and then I say, cool. So losing 30 pounds is actually, you believe, is going to give you 10 more years of life. Okay, cool. Are you willing to get resourceful, resourceful financially in order to accomplish this goal? Right? They say yes. Boom. Now this opens up the door for more conversation about payment plans, maybe a credit card, maybe a loan, so on and so forth. All right. Now, what do we got? Support and trust. We got two more. All right. So for support, okay, this is the next belief. This is the belief that people around them, their spouse, their partners, their friends, will support them in fixing the problem. Okay, will support them in fixing the problem. So basically, they want to believe that they have a support system. They have people behind them that will, push them if things aren't going well. All right, now the last one here is trust. This is another really big one. Okay, so do they see your solution as clearly different, unique, superior than similar methods that they've tried in the past? All right, this eliminates I've been burned before. And then are they bought into your method, right? So if they've been burned before, if they believe that your process is different, unique, and superior than similar methods, then clearly that's going to help them overcome that concern there. But the reason this one is so important is in the coaching space, there is no barrier to entry, right? Anybody can become a coach. So inherently, people don't trust coaches because anybody can become or anybody can say that they are a coach, right? So they don't have to actually have done anything to coach people, which is absolutely fucking insane, right? So in terms of trust, a lot of this is solved in your marketing, right? You want to show that you walk the walk. Don't just coach people, but show that you're actually doing the thing that you're coaching. Be the walking embodiment of what they want to purchase, right? That's probably the best way to solve this. And honestly, now that I think about it, really the only way to solve this, because once they're on the sales call, if they don't trust you, the only thing you could do to win them over is if they like your personality, if they like connect with you and they feel like you would like be friends outside of the call. But they need to feel this level of trust prior to getting on the call with you. But once again, going through the 7 beliefs that people need in order to buy, people need to feel pain. They need to have a level of doubt that they can accomplish this. They need to believe that the cost of not doing anything is worse than paying for your program. They also need to have a desire, something that they're chasing. They need to believe that they are willing and resourceful to pay for this program. They need to believe that they have a support system, and they need to trust you. All right, y'all. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you like this style of content where I talk more philosophical sales, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you want more sales content or the best sales content for online fitness, or not online fitness, just online coaches in general, make sure you subscribe either to the podcast or to the YouTube. I'll chat with you guys soon. Peace out.